Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for another edition of YBMcast. And today on the show, as always, I got my dog here, Mitch Thomas, with me. Mitch, how we doing?
Good, sir.
And we got a special guest on the show as we've been talking hitting. I think, one of the better hitting instructors in this area. Met Shane, we met a couple years ago when we did a tour stop with the
in our natural facility, yes.
And I was watching Shane breaking down, hitting and working, whatnot, and it was really interesting stuff. I've been following. You got your Facebook page, Premier
Hitting Development, yes.
Premier Hitting Development. Go check that out right there. He works with a lot of players around the area that are in various stages, from youth to college to pro, and so we're glad to have you on the show.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. It's always good because I'm the Joe Schmo guy, so it's always good to have the experts around.
I wouldn't consider myself an expert. I learn every day.
Absolutely.
So hitting, we've been talking about hitting. We're talking about hitting development, instruction, and you've been doing hitting instruction for how many years?
27 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
That's older than my son. No offense.
Well, I started quite young, but in anything, if you don't evolve, you go extinct. So I've been able to evolve as an instructor over 27 years and just constantly try to get better at what I do and improve my craft. And, that's the key to staying around.
It is, isn't it?
You have to find creative ways, and you have to find the, different drill sets and inventive ways, and the technology aspect, the video aspect. And if you can continue to do that and produce results and help people along the way, you stick in the game. And that's very blessed to get to do what I do each day. And, it doesn't get any better than going to work every day, because I don't really consider it work. It's my passion.
Right.
And I love to do what I do.
That's the key, right?
Yeah, it sounds like he's had a little bit of everything, from like teaching kids how to squash bugs to
Absolutely.
to video these days, from the knob directionals of the 80s.
You're a product of your environment, and you trust a set, and you trust a philosophy, and you trust your coaches and their development, and over time, some of it sticks, some of it don't stick, but you just you continue to learn. Different clinics, camps, ABCA conventions. I've been fortunate enough to work with a number of instructors across the country, and you just find creative ways to kind of meld what you want to do as your blueprint for development and pick and choose things. It's not an exact science, but there's a lot of science involved into the swing now, through especially the data, through the video, through just, learning and evolving with that. I read a book many years, probably 8 or 9 years ago, The Science of Hitting by Ted Williams. And I thought, good grief, this dude is crazy. I had never heard things.
1986.
Exactly. I had never heard things that he started talking about. And he was in tune with the barrel turn and doing different things. And I'm going, well, that's not what I've been taught. Even high school, college, worked, in professional baseball and the scouting industry. We were never taught that stuff. We never looked for different cues like that. And it's just, I think a lot of people have tried to reinvent the wheel, but the wheel has not needed to be invented. So
the wheel's already been invented. So how does it turn, basically, right?
Exactly. It turns a much different way than what we were taught.
Yeah.
It really is.
Do you think, with the evolution of the swing, do you think TV has a lot to do with that versus
huge.
Major, over the major league level? Obviously, as kids, we've always, wanted to be the next big leaguer or the next big star. But do you think TV, especially ESPN, is a big proponent of the growth of technology?
TV has a lot to do with it, but social media is the driver of what's going on right now.
Fair enough.
There's so many different social media platforms right now. The hitting Twitter wars going on with different people.
Yes, we got a couple local guys.
My goodness, and I have a great relationship with a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
But I don't choose to go into that war. I do my thing. My thing works quite well for me, it's just I don't like to engage in that type of deal. But
it's results, right?
Exactly. But I think the social media platforms are humongous for growth and development, because there's so many different ideas and philosophies. And like I said, I'll pick and choose, or a drill here, or a drill there, but there's so much information out there now that if you really step outside of where you're at and want to continue to get better and evolve, you can. And it's trial and error. You try things, it works. You try something, it might not work, but each individual learns at a different pace, a different skill set. So you have to kind of meld what you do as a teacher and a developer. Not every guy learns at the same rate. Not every guy learns with the same drill set. Not every girl learns like that. So the more you can evolve how you teach individually, not just from a particular one drill set, you have to do that.
Let's look at this, because we've had this conversation and we've been talking. So it's interesting to get your perspective on this, because we're looking at the student, right? You have a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, right? Then you have the 14-year-old. Then you have the 18-year-old. Then you have the 25-year-old.
Sure.
There's a whole lot of difference in the thought process, right? We've talked about that. To how do you express can you express technology to that 9-10-year-old? What do you do that way? How does that work, and how does that move through the process?
You can express technology with younger kids, but the parent has to be involved with that expression. So when I do an evaluation, I evaluate my hitters every month. We blast motion every month. We do video analysis. I'm able to cloud everything that I have to show them their numbers on a month-to-month basis, their video on a month-to-month basis.
But you're doing it only on a monthly basis, not daily or weekly.
No, I mean, because you have to give time for development and drill sets. And, like I said, I test the first week of every month. So we video, we do data, and you base that on what they need to do. And then you prescribe drills weekly, and you give them a 3 week period in time to try to make some adjustments. And then you go back and test it again. But if the parents aren't involved at 7, 8, 9, and 10 years old, they're wasting their time and their money. This is something that this is going to enhance their future projectably, but this is an investment. Yeah. We're not some we're not some batting cage that you're going to go stick a token and take 25 swings and hope for the best. These people are paying good money for an investment. So protect your investment. That's probably the biggest thing for me, for parents, is protect your investment. Ask questions, be involved, be engaged. Don't send Johnny down to the basement to swing on his own at 9 years old, because the aptitude aspect and how they perceive what is being taught is not going to be there at 9. At 14, it's going to be a little bit better. At 22, it's going to be really good. The amount of work that I've done with Tate Matheny right now is incredible over a 4-week period in time, and what we've been able to do. But he's a high-level athlete with great aptitude, he's just a great athlete. Right. And he can process things much, much differently than a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old. You start talking scientific with a 9-year-old, and they're going to look at you like you've got 3 heads. So you have to break it down. You have to meld of what demographic and what age group you're really working in. You can get way more technical with a 14-year-old, but even at that, the parents need more involvement. I know they trust us, but I want to make sure that they're getting everything out of what I do as an instructor in a program, because the money's great and I love to do it, but man, this is our legacy. I want people to improve. I want people to get better. So I want everybody on the same page to help in that development, because I see them 1 day a week. They see their kids 7 days a week. Right. They really do. So protect that investment.
Yeah. How important is it for those parents to make sure they're locked into the information too, or know the information, or how, when they're working with that kid at home, how to present that information?
Super important. Well, and here's what I do. I wrote a hitting book during COVID. It's a 19-page outline on why. Why do we need to do what we need to do? Talks the ins and outs of everything, through the load, the swing path, everything. Then I put together a hitting drill book. I gave every client that outline, that drill book. I prescribe drills out of that. I send YouTube videos. I send all that stuff. But they have that blueprint at home. I have a line of communication every week with my students. They're on a text message list. I have Team Snap stuff. I send out stuff on a weekly basis. I want them to engage me. I want them to text me to ask questions, because that tells me that they're trying to protect that investment and they want the knowledge. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, I'm only seeing them 1 day a week for a half hour.
Yeah, this is a huge investment, especially
it really is.
Athletes that are in 20 plus weeks, a year, that, because I have parents that I have kids that can just swing it, and
sure,
they don't need to do anything.
Right.
They want to see me twice a week because they want the reps, they want the numbers. The parents don't know necessarily how to present the information. And it's maintenance, I guess, if you will. And I just think to myself, I mean, it's a lot of money to spend, but when you're that invested, these are next level kids that'll probably pay off.
Absolutely.
I have a hard time with trying to give technology, to the younger age group, just because how much do they understand? How much does that parent understand, and how invested they are?
Sure.
And I've been doing this. I'm 41, so I've been doing it for 20 years. I've been doing it since I got out of college. And it's very interesting to go coach college and then come back and working with high level kids to come back and work with 9 and 10-year-olds.
Sure.
I have a hard time actually learning to dumb it down, if you will, to get on that same level. And you have to have that commitment. If you don't have the commitment from the athlete, the parent, it struggles. It's a struggle bus for me to work with those.
I mean, there's a lot of parents are on board with it. They want that. They want the feedback, and then there's some parents that just want to drop Johnny off and keep him active for a half hour and leave.
That's true.
It just really is. It just all depends. But for me, if I'm going to invest something, I want to see a return on that investment because I'm working hard for my money.
Well, that's your name too, right? You said something about your legacy.
It's your legacy.
It's your name.
I want to be remembered as a guy who is very passionate, who is very detail oriented, but I care for each individual person just as much as I do my own children, because you're a product of what you do in your time here, and you want it to be productive.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting as we go through this when we're talking about let's just bring back to youth baseball. And we'll talk from that, you're talking 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, before you get into high school. If you're a parent and you're looking at your child, and you're looking at that maybe 9, 10-year-old, right? What are aspects that you can, as a parent, if we're talking hitting instruction, we want our child to get better, and we're talking about an investment, right? What are things we're looking for here that can tell us as a parent that says, you know what, I probably maybe need to get my child a little bit more and bring that into that scope? What can we look for as parents?
I look at how invested that kid is already. How much baseball are they watching? Are they on you talk about social media. Are they watching the highlights on ESPN? What's their IQ like at that age? Because I feel like if they're invested there, they're going to be invested in themselves and their swings and their craft. If I have kids that are 16 years old who are decent ball players that have no idea how to play the game. They don't watch the game. The IQ levels are not there. They don't understand sequencing, pitch sequencing, or any of that stuff. So when you have those conversations with them, they're not there because they don't understand it, because they don't watch it enough.
There's a complete disconnect with kids in baseball IQ these days.
We've talked a lot about that.
So driven to just watch highlights. Everybody wants to see home runs, diving plays. They want to see strikeouts. They want to see a minute 30 clip of what's going on. I go to ball games all the time, and I'm there and I'm invested. I'm taking video of big league guys. I'm watching this. You constantly learn. You look at kids nowadays and they want to be entertained other than just watching the game. There's where the disconnect starts to come, because we're so driven now with, what we do in a showcase setting. There's so many guys that are showcase babies, but they get out and they get into a college program and they don't know certain aspects of the game that really can cost your team a win or a loss, and it's just completely different than when we grew up, because we were so enamored in watching the game and understanding that this is a game. It's not just based upon, exit velo and velocity and everything else. You have to have a good feel for the game. You have to play the game for the game. You need to bunt. You need to hit and run. You need to manufacture stuff. You need to play good defense. It's not just predicated on throwing hard and hitting home runs.
I think that's one of the interesting things, and I've watched this because we work with Kevin Mulder. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. I had a little catch in my throat there. When PBR goes out, we've been out there and they go through the showcase stuff,
Absolutely.
The hit and the five,
right.
You hit this. But then after that, they go out and they play a baseball game. Mm-hmm. They divide those kids up and they go and play a baseball game, which I think is very interesting. And we were able to call one of the games. We broadcasted it live out at GCS Ballpark, and watching the kids play, you could really see a difference from just the showcase part to when those kids got on the field and who's doing what in the movement, the playmaking, the ideas of what is happening within a game. And I think that goes to your point. And I think that's an important part of that whole scouting aspect.
Sure. There's intangibles that you want to see as a scout, as a college coach, as an evaluator. And, I think we've really gotten away from the intangible aspect. Everybody wants to see the sexy numbers. What's the spin rate? What's the exit velo?
Right. Yeah. We have Adam Hatchman at Timberland, and he's an electric junior. He's pulling down 100 plus miles an hour.
Right.
He's 96 off the bump. It's super exciting to see that, but can he throw strikes? How
exactly? Can he throw in a sequence? Can he set somebody up?
Yep.
Because eventually, and this guy seems to me like a high level guy. He gets into professional baseball, 96 in the middle of the plate's getting lit up.
Yeah.
How do you
play and how?
Coach
Perkins
you see what I'm saying?
Oh,
absolutely. Tony's a great guy.
Right. And how do you
program? That's going to get hit.
Yeah.
If he doesn't command both sides of the plate with some secondary stuff, if you're a good enough hitter and understand how to slow down velocity as a hitter, how to stay behind the secondary stuff, if it's in the middle of the plate, it's getting barreled.
Yep.
Because I've got many guys that will barrel 96 all day. Some guys won't. But I've got
But if you're at elite level,
absolutely,
you want to. I want that fastball.
Give me 96.
Give me a 96 flat fastball, and I'm going to drive it in the gap.
You're doggone right. It's going to get barreled.
Yes.
I feel like it's always easy to hit a fastball.
And that's something, as my son pitched through college and whatnot, and that was always we called it constructing an out.
Sure.
How do you construct
There's a blueprint to getting out.
Right.
But we don't set that blueprint anymore because so many people just want to throw hard and try to throw it by people. And eventually that it just doesn't work anymore. Because as a college coach, I want somebody with a plan. What is your game plan? Throw hard. Well, what else is the game plan?
So let's bring that into the other side because we're talking about hitting because I think this goes, and this is something we've discussed, and I'm sure you do, especially when you get to a high level, but how can you bring this into the approach to that 10, 11, 12-year-old is my approach at the plate. We use this terminology, my approach at the plate. Well, there has to be an understanding of how I'm going to take what I see from this pitcher and what's my approach? Is he just throwing fastballs and I'm going to get my foot down and drive something? Or am I going to because it's a little soft. I want to see a couple pitches. Where's he at? What's going on? What's my approach at the plate? Correct?
If you're not hunting the fastball, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
You better be hunting fastballs and have a two-strike approach still. But even with two strikes, I'm still hunting a fastball because every hitter does not want to get beat with one pitch, and that's the fastball. So you have to have trust. With two strikes, I might take an 88, 90 mile an hour inside fastball, but I'm going to hit it through the middle at that point because I'm not trying to cheat. I have to have the ability to let the ball get deeper, especially at two strikes. So if I've got the ability to take a 90 mile an hour fastball middle in and hit it through the middle, I've got trust because that tells me I'm also going to be behind the secondary stuff and I'm going to do some damage to whatever it is. But I want to be in control of my at bat. So for me, in that perspective, I'm hunting fastballs all day long.
It's interesting because I coach a 14U team now, and so trying to build their IQ hitting wise, I always looked at how I approached hitting. I always thought I was good at it. And predicting pitches or guessing pitches, if you will, and just setting up. I caught, so I would like, what would I do here? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it became easy for me. And I sit now and talk to these kids. I'm like, okay, what are you thinking right here? He just threw your strike off the outside corner or a ball off the outside corner. What's the next pitch? We're sitting fastball. And what are we doing? He's like, well, I'll swing at the strike. Well, that could be all 9 zones.
Right.
We don't do that. We zero down on a zone and, let's attack zones. And those are things that I'm trying to work with my younger kids that I work with is picking spots to hit in because it's hard to hit in all 9. We cannot make adjustments. So if I'm looking up, I get a ball down in the strike zone. It's hard to make that adjustment like that, especially if I'm cheating. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mentally cheating. And so that's what I'm trying to do with my young guys. I'm trying to build their IQ as hitters, directional hitting, how to get inside, outside to do, a nice little Derek Jeter swing. I call it the Derek Jeter swing.
And you got to look at this too, is not many guys at the youth level throw inside. 80 to
You're
85% of the time,
You're
the pitch is going to be located away. So if I'm not hunting anything middle out, I'm in trouble. All right.
Right.
I mean, and then once again, it gets back to allowing the ball to travel a little bit.
Yeah.
But not a lot of pitchers throw inside at this level. They're away. They have these big bats. I mean, there's juice in these bats, but from a pitching perspective, I'd be throwing inside way more than I'd be throwing away right now, because everybody's, especially at the younger levels, they're afraid to get beat and they want to cheat a little bit, and they don't trust the fact that they can stay behind the ball long enough, and they'll cheat on a ball. They'll get beat one time, and it might not be a located fastball inside. It might be a miss, but they'll get jammed, and now they think they've got to be early. They got to be out in front. They don't want to get jammed. They don't want to get let the ball travel. Yeah. I mean, do some damage through the middle of the field. If they can do that, that sets everything else up. But, you have to kind of understand that pitchers do not throw inside a lot at this group.
Yeah.
And I don't think kids at that age too understand maybe, and we always use this terminology, trust your hands, right? Can they, do they trust themselves? And that's what the term, to be able to get their hands through that on that inside pitch.
Well,
and
it's also understanding how to control the load to be able to stay behind the ball to get to a ball inside.
Yeah.
Because if they've gained ground fast, they're pushing off their back leg, they're getting, let's just equate this. If the pitch is fast and you're moving fast, you have no time to react. The load is controlled and slow. It's from behind. So you have to have the ability as a hitter to adjust, to slow down velocity. How do we slow down velocity? I've got to be behind. How do I stay back on the secondary stuff? It all equates to a good understanding of how to get our body to the right loaded launch position. So
I try to work with my kids at similar on, we have a good infield defense, and I talk to my infielders, how do you slow down those hard hit balls?
Absolutely.
When you go onto your backhand, why are we sitting back on it? And it's just, I know that's a little different, but in the mindset, it's kind of the same, or the context is the same. And so then I get to understand how to see that ball deep or whatever, and get
good
on
athletes
that
are able to slow the game down. And
Yeah.
that's why you see big league guys succeed with guys that are throwing 98 to 100 miles an hour, because they've unlocked the ability to slow down the velo and to stay back on the secondary stuff. And it all ties on, how they get their body ready. The load has got to be much earlier.
Charlie said that last week.
Yeah, he did.
He said you got to slow the game down, but
You have
mentally
to
play fast.
Absolutely.
There's one other aspect here, and this is something I've gone into, and I know this sounds strange, but I've umpired for a long time at the high school level. I did some younger college stuff and whatnot, and you see some kids. I saw, actually, this was back. One of the best pitchers I saw was a kid that played for the Naturals. He was playing with Lance.
Luke Mann.
Yes, went to Mizzou, right?
Yeah, he's at Mizzou now.
Yeah. Kid was throwing 90 plus and had this curveball that was just disappeared. And so it's always interesting to me as an umpire. I always approached it like I was a hitter. If I can see a strike, I've got to be able to see a strike.
Sure.
I got to see the ball as early as possible.
Absolutely.
As an umpire to call balls and strikes. So I'm effectively working to see the ball as quickly as possible out of his hand.
Sure.
So that I can get a good read on what's happening. And I think as an umpire, I don't know how other guys look. I've talked to some, most of them talk in the same way, but I think it's a similar thought process. So how as a hitter, if I'm going to work to these things, that is something training my eye to pick that ball up, correct?
Right. Absolutely.
How are you teaching that window?
Well, I mean, the way I look and perceive the timing aspect of it is, what does every pitcher have to do? They have to break their hands. If you're not loading at handbrake, you will not hit high-level pitching, because you have got to be able to work forward right out of the hand. I have to recognize the pitch out of the hand. So if I'm not getting into my load at handbrake or a little bit right after, it just really depends on the velo too.
Sure.
But what does every pitcher have to do? He's got to break his hands.
Yeah.
All right. How many times do you see pitchers quick pitch when they're on the stretch pitch? But you still have to break the hands. So for me, the cue for me timing wise, whether it's 8, 9, 10, 17, 18, 19, is there's my timing cue. Handbrake. How much deception do we have in deliveries now? Do you see?
Oh yeah.
Especially with a lot of Latin ball players, a lot of Asian. Yeah. There's a lot of deception in the delivery, a lot of pause, but they still have to break their hands. So you use little cues like that I want to get into my load at handbrake, but understanding how to load well enough to stay around your rear leg, to not immediately just want to fall forward. That's a big aspect of what we teach differently now, because as a hitter, when I was growing up and even through high school, college, we were taught to load into our back leg. Well, that's not necessarily the case. If I'm loading into my back leg, I have to push off my back leg to move forward. So what that allows us not to do now is systematically load our body early enough to slow down the velocity, to stay back on the off-speed stuff. The load is around the rear leg. Pitchers load around the rear leg. It's a coil. But I was taught much differently, but just through the understanding and just continually evolving, the load is not into the back leg. We don't push off the back leg, pushes the body weight forward vast. So I can't slow down the velo. I'm speeding up velo, but I'm also out in front of the secondary stuff. And that's where a lot of youth hitters struggle. Once they, at 7, 8, 9, they're going to dominate. You're going to have, you got bigger, stronger athletes at 7, 8, and 9. Yeah. So they're, they can manipulate the barrel with something moving a little bit quicker. But as they start to get to 10, 11, 12, they start seeing the change up, a little bit of a, breaking ball. They get a little bend to it. You start to expose what you're taught incorrectly, in my opinion, how to get your body to the loaded launch position to be able to stay back on that secondary stuff. Because what do you hear all the time with the young kids? He's throwing too slow. You can't make them speed up. So adjust. You have to adjust.
That's my favorite thing right now. Watching our young kids saying, "I can't hit slow pitching. I can only hit fast pitching."
Because they don't understand the load. They don't understand how to stay behind that.
And we talked about this last. I think in our last conversation, we were talking. We were talking about what Pete Rose. Mm-hmm. I saw that video with Pete Rose talking with Alex Rodriguez, mm-hmm. Frank Thomas,
right,
on MLB.
Yep.
Or it was Fox, one of the two.
I think it was MLB.
Yeah. And Pete said, I didn't change my swing.
Yeah.
I adjusted by either moving up in the box,
yes,
in this. And it was funny because Alex goes, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that. And here's Alex Rodriguez looking at Pete Rose mm-hmm. saying, I wouldn't have thought of that. We didn't, right. Those weren't adjustments. Here's Pete Rose from the 70s on through talking about different adjustments in different time frames, and it clicked with those guys. Mm-hmm. These are all great hitters.
Right.
Yeah, there's 1,000 home runs there.
Right.
And then you have 4,000 plus hits from Pete Rose. Going back to being on your front foot going there, I like to, with my younger kids, put a baseball on the tee. And I say, squat. What happens to the baseball? Rises. Right. Stand up on your toes. What happens? Ball goes down. Go forward. What happens? Go backwards. What happens? The ball actually never moves. You perceive it to
Absolutely.
Move. And so I use that in hitting, because if we're out here trying to hit a ball, all we're doing is making it quicker. So Absolutely. What do? We get real, steep to the ball, whatever. And, we're trying to get barrel out there too early. We cannot stay behind it. And right. we have those conversations and we start to build off there. That's kind of what I do with my younger age groups, is just to start to get them to visually understand. And then I physically try to get them to understand, because what's the hardest thing to do with a 10-year-old? It's get him to understand his body.
Absolutely.
How to, gather up and, what the load really is, or what the stride really is, or how to be in a good neutral 50-50 position at launch instead of being out here or too far back. They don't understand their muscles.
Right.
So it's very hard to, in my opinion, sometimes to teach that unless that kid gets it. I have, like I said, 10-year-old kid. She's a girl, softball hitter, flat gets it. I have a 9-year-old kid. I cannot teach the same way. I have them back to back.
Well, you can't.
And it's so very different.
Absolutely.
I got to have way more fun with the 9-year-old because of where he's at. He takes things. If you tell him one thing, it's exaggerate. He takes, if I tell him to lift his hands just a little bit, he goes way up here,
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, well, I can't teach this kid yet. So I have to go back to real basic fundamentals, just have a little bit of fun, get a little PVC work that he hates because it's boring. Right. I'm trying to get him to understand his body. And last time I was there, he said, Coach, can we just swing all the time? I said, yep, throw the ball up and hit it. So I stand out there and I field ground balls. And for half an hour, he hits missiles at me and he thinks it's the coolest thing. But he has no idea what he's doing to actually do it. And I don't really say nothing, just to have fun. And that's what his parents want. That's what he wants. But he's starting to get it on how, to sit back behind the baseball or where to hit the baseball at out front. And, instead of trying to throw it back here. So it works for him. But my 10-year-old, she wants the best drills. She wants the best information. She understands the technology piece of things. And we, and she comes to the barrel party every Wednesday. she shows up. She tries to outdo her 14-year-old brother, and it's just fun.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Just competition, right?
Well, sure. It's the competitiveness aspect of it. But, there you go, and it's just kids are wired differently.
Yeah.
Some kids want to really excel. Some kids want to have fun. But at the end of the day, we're not just teaching a game. We're teaching life lessons. We're holding kids accountable because they're going to be held accountable every day in their life once they get in the workforce. They want to be detail oriented,
Some are not ready.
Exactly.
And that's it. But it's true.
Why
it's
are we
true.
here? We're not here just to teach fundamental aspects of the game. This has got to, it has to resonate in life. I mean, and I think, that's an important aspect of what we do. For me, they're not just a number. They really aren't. I really care about each and every one of them. And, obviously you got some at some levels, some at other levels. But, at the end of the day, they're there because they really want to be there and they want to learn. But, we're
some of them
part
learn differently.
Absolutely.
That's it.
You have to be more visual with some kids, more, we need to maybe go through a little bit more video and show them what the big boys do, show them what the girls do. And I do that a lot, But, kids are looking for a lot of visual feedback. They're looking for visual feedback. They need feel. So, you're trying to give them as much feel and visual feedback as possible. So,
and to that, I think it's always interesting because I go back to, I was working with a hitting instructor. He's minor league JD Arndt. He was over in O'Fallon working with Drew. And we used to sit and just watch video of, the guys, Manny to Pujols to, you name it, we're just pulling up. And we would talk about the breakdown, the swing, this, that, and just the information and just pulling and looking at swings and how, because everybody got there, as you said, a little differently, but in the end, the load, the things, the basics.
There's absolutes that you have to perform at that level. And I've got an iPad in my cage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that we can go back and refer. But, then I'll also, the video program that I have, I'm able to video them and then side by side them with a big league example or a fast pitch softball, USA softball, So, and just being able to refer back to that and get them to understand, okay, this is what we're talking about, getting loaded around the rear leg, continuing to load forward as we move, continue to hold that coil to get some stretch, to take the slack out of the body. And then they see it and they go, oh, wow, okay, well now, now let's get a drill that's going to give them that type of feel of the coil and the stretch and the forward move. So, it's a valuable asset to have, iPads in our cage and different things for them to visually see that, but then give them a drill set that they can feel it, that they can see that. So they, the understanding is much greater from that.
I go back to this because I threw this at Mitch a while back, and it's something my dad taught me. And it's something that he learned, and I do it from in my faith, who I am as a person, but power plus attitude equals performance. And it really reflects
Absolutely.
in what the power of knowledge, but knowledge without application.
Right.
Knowledge without application is useless to us. And this is kind of what we're getting at right here. How do we help these young people apply the information that is being given to them? Because in the end, and I think that goes to your point, caring about that.
Sure.
Giving them, what are we giving these kids? Because it is life lessons, because you have to be able to apply information throughout your entire life as you go through life, whether it be playing baseball or a job or your family, your kids, they're going to face this information. And how do we apply the knowledge that we've been given? What's the application of that helps us grow, keeps our attitude right? That's a big thing, right?
Absolutely.
So that we can perform in life.
You have to continue to stimulate each kid that you work with. We don't work with the same drill sets every week. I have a number of different drill sets for everything, whether it's we're working on the load, the bat path, the forward move.
Right.
We're working situational hitting, off speed, we're working on maybe hitting a little bit more velo. You have to apply different drill sets on a weekly basis to continue to challenge them, because if you don't challenge them, you don't change them.
They get very bored very fast.
There's a difference, between a drill and just being active. Activity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. To me, that's activity and insanity. You have to give them feedback.
Right.
They have to see ball flight. They have to feel some things and understand that, each week you got to come in with a game plan. You have to have a plan for that week. And that's something that, I'll do on a weekly basis is On Monday morning, I send out my drill sets to my home clientele. This is what we're focusing on this week. But there's also an understanding of there's a pyramid on how we need to learn different attributes of the swing, and understanding how to turn the barrel and understand that, yes, the knob does go to the ball, but it really goes up to the ball. We're not really taking the knob down to the ball. The barrel is turning rearward to accelerate forward, just getting them, once they can understand the hand pivot and the barrel turn, then you start moving into the load, understanding the coil, then understanding the forward move. We do a lot of different drill sets with no stride, to get them to understand and how to feel the body organized, because the swing will self-organize, but you have to get to the right load and launch position for it to organize.
Yeah, my big favorite one right now, or the last year or so, has been that 90-degree drill to really feel
stretch
that
and
barrel
fire.
turn. Yeah, it for me, it's interesting because we growing up, 2000, 2010, or the 2001 to 2011, you got to watch Pujols swing, and actually hearing him talk about his swing and then watching his swing, it cracks me up because I always feel like it's two different things. Because he always would talk about
it's real versus feel is what it is.
Yeah.
He perceived, and I was fortunate enough to throw BP to Albert for an off season. Jose Oquendo's a good buddy of mine. So in 2010, I threw Albert BP during the off season. It was fantastic. But just to watch him
did the cage make it?
It was. But the thing of it is with Albert, he was so meticulous in what he did. He would take 8 to 10 swings and then he's done for a little while. And then he would talk and he would do this. But just to weigh him go about a systematic approach to what he was trying to feel. It's not just about the swing. It's prioritizing every swing. It's understanding that you got to go through a little bit of checklist, and to watch him meticulously do his work was amazing. And then being able to throw that guy BP and watch laser after laser be hit, but just being so meticulous and so attention to detail. And he would, banter back and forth and talk with Jose and different things like that. It was phenomenal. But being able to bring in college level athletes that I had, Jason Haggerty, who's now the recruiting coordinator and a hitting coach at Mizzou, was at the University of Miami at that time, got to hit with him. David Stewart, who played at Nebraska, who's now the head coach at Vianney High School. Jimmy Clockey, Hall of Famer at Southeast Missouri State, drafted twice. I would bring in these college level athletes because he wanted to hit in a group, because for him, it's not just prioritizing a quantity amount of swings, it's quality. But what he was able to do to mentor these guys, and all three guys played professional baseball as well. Jason played 10 years in a Padres organization, but these guys played in the College World Series. They achieved, but a lot of that, was being able to get around people like him and watch him do his job, because to him it's a craft, and he's really good at that craft.
Yeah, he is.
Hitting is a craft.
It really is.
It is a craft, guys. Shane, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
And we're gonna bring Shane back.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. This is what we love to do here.
Because this is fun stuff. And
I do. I have one question though.
Yes, sir.
Did you coach Casey and Ziggy Moore?
I did not.
Okay. The only reason I said that is you talked about the absolutes.
Yes.
And so I've been working with, I bought the hitting zone from Casey and Ziggy.
I actually worked up there with some different athletes a few years ago.
Yeah, before Ziggy was owner, because I feel like I saw you up there a few times. But anyways, they always would talk about the 5 absolutes of the swing. And you mentioned something about the absolutes. And when we do our hitting camps, it's what we always start with, is those 5 absolutes of swinging. And so when you set it out, you got the SLU stuff on. They both played at SLU.
Right. I got this from Braxton Martinez. Braxton's my boy from SLU. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
But it just, for whatever reason, you said it, and it just it's interesting that it's just that simple. That's what we need to start with, and then we just build off of those.
It really
Every
is a
swing has to
blueprint.
have that.
Absolutely. You have to have a plan.
Yeah. And
swinging without a plan is just a swing, but you have to have a meticulous plan to execute the swing. But more than anything is just getting them to understand different aspects of it. And it can't all be put together in one day. There's a blueprint, but you have to master one step before the next step. And then eventually it melds into what you're going to do as an approach.
Gotcha.
So, it's just getting them to understand how to feel things, but, supplying with a lot of knowledge, and challenge them. You have to challenge them.
You have to make sure you're on your P's and Q's too, because they will ask the why more than anything. I was just talking to sorry, I know that we're trying to wrap this thing up, but I was just talking to a young parent with an athlete's 12 years old. And I always have these things with, why do we ask so many questions? Where I remember playing, like my coach told me what to do. I did it. I was jumping before he ever finished, saying what he had to say. And I had worked under Jerry Daniels a long time ago, and had the luxury of that was instruction then. I didn't even know it was a real thing back then.
Right. Oh yeah.
But it was, and I just can just do what you're told. Right. And now it's like there's so many whys. And if you as a coach don't know the why of what you're doing, you are disservicing your client. And it's nice because I had, like last night, I had connection balls we were using, and I had a coach, why do you use it? And I explained to her why we use these. And she's like, okay, well, I can see that for baseball, maybe not softball. I was like, well, it's still there in this sport. Cause well, how do we hit the rise ball? Well, so we had those conversations, and it's fun. But if you don't come prepared with answering the why,
you're in trouble.
Yeah. And so I feel like it challenges you to know that why.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
and execute the why yourself.
I put together a hitting outline. It's a 19-page outline, but I've got illustrations. I've got different examples of big league hitters, softball hitters. Why do we need to tilt? Why do we need to turn? So it gets them to refer back to that.
Yeah.
But you want them to be engaged. You want them asking why, because that tells me you care.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm working with a kid now trying to work on like perceived velocity and all the different things that the game gives us. And I going back to the social media things and just technology, it has given me a lot of info to help work with my kids. But I break it down, not so much the technology piece, but how to prepare them if we do get into technology. Sure. I like to use the technology to advance my skill set.
Absolutely.
And then advance theirs. Because if I don't do drills, if I can't execute the swing and I can't directional hit, I don't go in there until I can do it.
Absolutely.
And then I preach it. I still compete with my kids. I'm 41.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm broken.
Right.
But I want to teach them how to hit missiles everywhere.
If I can't perform a drill myself, but I expect my client to do that, I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
All right. I'm teaching something I have no idea to do.
Right.
So I'll challenge exactly. If I can't do it myself, I'm not teaching it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
and that's a big thing, because that means a lot for a kid to see you perform the drill and you go, oh wow, that's pretty good, right?
And then you barrel it,
exactly.
It sounds
exactly.
Good. But I've taken a swing and I've absolutely just crushed the swing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I'm not gonna do it more than once.
Mic drop, you're done.
I've rolled over a few times. I was like, that's not how you do it. See what I did wrong.
Exactly.
I can go in there and feel.
You got to cover it up a little bit too. See, I'm showing an example of why you don't want to do just that right there.
And then it's like 6 or 7 swings in, and I'm like, my back hurts.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, I got a pinched nerve. I got a pinched nerve in my neck. I can't see. I can't get behind it. And they're like, Coach, you're really not that good, are you? And I was like, ooh. No, I have fun with my boys. I still like to try to compete, and I appreciate today getting on the show. I've actually sat here, learned a lot just through the communication. So I hope everybody's out there learning,
absolutely,
and tunes into this one. This is a good one,
and that's what we're here for. That's why we do the YBMcast. We love talking baseball. We love talking these things because that's what it's about. It's about youth, about bringing perspective, about the community, about having some fun, enjoying this because everybody's trying to get better.
Absolutely.
That's what it's about.
Name of the game.
Thanks again.
Oh,
Appreciate
my pleasure.
it.
My pleasure.
Everybody, hope you enjoyed. Subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Leave us a comment. The comments are great. If you've got a comment, if you've got something that you got a question about, we'd love to hear it, love to see it. Put it in there. Comment below, okay? And hopefully, we'll put some links to Premier Hitting Development in the show description. So you can go check out what Shane's doing there. And
I'm going.
There you go.
I didn't even know you had that, and so I'm going right away. I'm gonna get off here, go in my truck, sit there, and pull it out right away. I love to learn. That's the biggest thing. Is I am not the best out there.
The one thing that I'm willing to do too is I'll pass along anything and everything that I have, because I've been blessed with so many instructors across the country that sends me this type of information.
Yeah.
I don't create it all myself, but I take useful aspects of it and I meld that into my program. So if there's anything that anybody needs, drill sets, drill books, anything, I'm happy to share information with anybody and everybody who wants to get better.
Yeah, go follow.
I think that's great and that's one of the great things about why I love bringing people like you on the show. It's like Coach Perkins. We're finishing up, his deal on how to build a successful high school program. Coach Perkins loves to talk about what he does. He isn't hiding it. This is what you want to do. You want to be successful.
That's what makes Randy such a good person.
Right.
Tony.
Yeah. Exactly.
But he's always been that way. I mean, I was fortunate enough to scout with Tony when he was scouting, and we was with the Rockies. I was with the Marlins, and just conversing with Tony and just understanding the true passion that he has. And there's no doubt why the guy has been extremely successful in this game is his passion for the game, but his attention to detail. But not only can he teach the game, he can motivate his players day in and day out to be better. And I got goosebumps thinking about that right there. And but this is why I do what I do.
When you talk about blueprints, he's set it for the
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Everybody's chasing how.
Well, sure.
Yes.
And
it's hard to fall behind when you're a trendsetter. And and that's,
but he's always adapted, though.
Absolutely. Well, he's evolved. And that's what we talk about.
Yeah.
He continues to evolve, find creative ways to continue to be successful.
Absolutely.
He doesn't keep one model, one blueprint. He evolves into what he needs to do.
How important do you think, sorry for I know that we're trying to wrap this thing up, but how important do you think it is with the staff that he brings in, every couple of years or,
They have to be on the same page.
Do you think, though, for him to evolve, because I feel like Tony's the same way, do you feel like a lot of his assistant coaches are the ones that are helping him adapt?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the thing about Tony is he takes that and he wants to get better with that. So he is not that type of guy where he's just going to say it's my way or the highway, and this has been my blueprint since, however long I've been there. He melds into that. But that's what makes him such a good coach,
right?
Is he's continuing to learn and evolve, and he goes, that works pretty well. Okay, we're going to do that.
Let's do it.
Exactly. But it's just him being that type of guy that you don't have to necessarily be set in your ways the entire. You can get better. You can evolve. Yeah. And as successful as he's been, he continues to get better. And that's why he's still there.
Yeah, Coach Tony is awesome. That's
fantastic.
That's what I love about working. I work at Timberland, and I work with Coach there.
Yes,
and he's that same. When I come to him and I say, "This is what I got," and he's like, "Well, let's do it. Make it make sense to me."
Right.
We execute it, verbally, and then he thinks about it, and then we go out and put it on the field, and there's an execution process. Then we start building off those.
Absolutely.
And he really utilizes his coaching staff. Mm-hmm. That's where I feel like that's where I excel at, is being able to work under somebody and let me teach.
Right.
I don't like being a head coach.
Right.
Because I have a hard time of being it's my way or the highway.
Sure.
Because I know a lot about, I feel like I know a lot about this game. Mm-hmm. And so I have that struggle sometimes when I have a young coach coaching with me that's just fresh out of college or, something of that nature. And I'm like, okay, talk. And then they won't take the floor.
Right.
When it needs to happen. And so then I take over and I lose that, letting that coach come in and help me.
Sure.
I become the dictator of the coaching staff. I don't like that.
Right.
I like working under somebody and letting me do my job. Let me sit out in the outfield and work with the outfielders, or sit behind the shortstop in middle infield as we're taking ground balls and just, hey, work this or whatever. I love that piece of the game.
Sure.
And that's what I feel like is going to help. What helps Tony is because he brings in guys that do that and really understand and have high level IQs for the sport. Every year I see somebody that's new, I'm like, man, it's got to be awesome working there. And then I was like, you don't understand how much Tony actually relies on his assistant coaches. And
you have to, though. You have to be able to delegate. You have to be able to,
trust the delegation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's what makes everything successful, You can't keep your finger on every aspect of the game all the time when you're running the ship.
Yeah.
There's a captain, and then there's people that work under the captain. And if that
you
doesn't
have to
run,
trust them to do their jobs.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the process of hiring the right people too.
Absolutely. Guys, again, hey, everybody, have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes. You hitters, right? Hit them where they ain't.
That's right.
Good advice.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next time.